Police chief had the audacity to try and promote black people, minorities, inside of the police department. They fired him. Let's put up his picture. His name is Chief Larry Scirotto. He's now a former chief. He was the chief for the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He has been fired. They say that he engaged in discrimination against white people. The city of Fort Lauderdale has fired their police chief, Larry Scirotto, who has been in office for less than a year, approximately 8 months, following allegations of discriminatory practices for promotions. Now, remember, this guy comes in because they need a new image. They literally recruited saying, we need a new face to the public. We need more trust with the community. And they recruited this guy. They hired him. They knew that he had a hardcore message and ideology about diversity in policing. He's a real police officer. He's been a police officer for a long time, all right? Came through the ranks, but he's one of the good guys. He believes in diversity, believes in fairness, believes in transparency and accountability. And he practices what he preaches. So he gets hired to change the face of that law enforcement department. And he decides to promote people of color. He did this. He promoted women. He did this. He was cool with promoting people who were members of the LGBTQ community. All right. Scirotto told CNN Saturday that the report that triggered his termination from the department was vague on the facts and was largely based on hearsay. Don't you find it ironic that he gets fired for promoting minorities? But if he would have had a history of shooting them, he would be protected by the police union. He would be protected by the governor of Florida. He would be protected by pro-police activists. But he had the nerve to actually promote black people and others inside of his department. There's more. The investigation concluded that during his time as police chief, Scirotto implemented an approach to hiring and promotion that was unfairly focused on minority candidates. The report said this chief once pointed to a conference room wall displaying photos of the department's command staff and stated, that wall is too white. And I'm gonna change that. He actually admitted, he said, yeah, I said that. He admitted it in the interview with CNN. He said, yeah, I stand by that. I said it, I meant it, no issue. Scirotto told CNN he promoted 15 people. Now look at the numbers here. He promoted 15 people from August to November. Why? He's the damn chief. That's why this is called an employment decision. He's the chief. He gets to make these decisions. So he promoted 15 people. I'm about to show you his real crime, at least to them. And of that group, 6 out of 15, 6 people were ethnic or gender minorities selected for promotions based on their merit. None of them were promoted because they were a protected class, he said. They were promoted because they were the best candidates. Who gets to determine who's the best? The chief does. In the police department, the chief gets to determine who's the best candidate for a job, who's best qualified for a job. Remember, all of these things are very subjective to whoever is in charge, right? So he makes an employee decision. He makes an employment decision. And he does what a chief is supposed to do. He promotes some people. Out of the 15 he promoted, 6 of them were ethnic or gender minorities, which means what? The rest of them were what? They still winning. Scirotto said he has obtained legal counsel and is planning on filing a wrongful termination lawsuit against the city. I encourage him to do so. I think he will win. When asked about his approach to promotions, Scirotto told investigators he was going to consider diversity at every opportunity, and he had to be intentional in his decision-making process. Nothing illegal about that statement whatsoever. As a matter of fact, that's part of some guidelines from the Equal Opportunity Employment Division of the federal government. His words match their particular guideline. If promoting diversity, now this is why I like this guy. This is what he said. If promoting diversity is the hill I'm going to die on, I will sleep well tonight. I won't allow them to tarnish my reputation. I won't allow them to tarnish the work that I've done in the 24 years I've been in this profession. He's been a cop for 24 years. Once again, if he would have shot and killed unarmed black folk or brown folk, he would have been protected by the statutes, by the culture, by the policy of law enforcement. But he promoted people that normally do not get those promotions. Following a thorough and extensive investigation, the city did a thorough investigation of employee complaints at Fort Lauderdale Police Department. The city manager determined that it was in the city's best interest to separate employment with the chief. They said that in the statement. Jackson, when you go deeper into the story, you actually find out there was one particular white male who had tenure for 20 years, and he passed that person up for a promotion, and that's what set off so much of this. It was because of that. Go ahead, brother. What are your thoughts on this case?
Of course it is. And let's examine really why Officer Larry Scirotto got fired. And it's because not only would he have weakened the power structure of the Fort Lauderdale police force, but he also, ironically, would have made it more efficient and more effective. Because one of the biggest problems with police forces all across the nation is that we often have officers who didn't grow up in these communities or don't really even spend much time in certain communities, who are sent there to protect them. And so that often is why a lot of officers, look at people in these communities as criminals, as bad people that you have to contain in some type of way. And so mixing it up a bit, being able to not just provide more representation, but also people from these communities will provide more trust between law enforcement and the public and just make them better at their jobs as a whole. But of course, what would that mean? It would mean that they wouldn't as easily be able to get away with things that they typically do and things that we typically cover on shows like this. So that's really all it was about.
And think about what this chief was trying to do. He was literally trying to save that police department from itself. Yep. You have a more diverse police force. You have a police force that looks more like the community. You put people in position that are qualified and also have a passion to serve and not simply police. When you do that, that community and the equity, the trust equity starts to increase. That's the idea. The idea is to create bridges that have been torn down because of the distrust between community and cop. And this cop tried, and look what happened to him.